Now live. Hello, everyone. You are now live on Instagram, live with Patricia Angelin. All the feels on this wonderful Wednesday, February the 3rd, 2021. And I'm very, very happy that you've joined me on what has been a rather difficult day for me. I always like to acknowledge elephants in the room, whether it's my own room or something that you have written to us. I didn't sleep much last night, which is something that happens to all of us frequently. And it's because of our emotions usually and because of stress. But it also causes more emotions and causes stress and causes us to be more volatile during the day. So what happened was, after not sleeping, or even beginning to sleep until about 7:15 a.m. and waking up at 9 and at 11, which was fine. I don't have anxiety about lack of sleep, which is fortunate for me. But I woke up very, very suddenly at 12:12 in the afternoon, looked at my phone and saw that I had a private coaching session at 12:15. So, to my credit, I simply got out of bed, turned on the Zoom, gave, this view, because I myself was actually still in the nude. And then my student logged on at exactly 12:15, and men and women, I was on that call and ready to roll at 12:17. Yay! So that's good. But of course, it has affected me all during the day. And I thought, how can you be with everybody on Instagram Live at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, sitting there in your beautiful red room, in the office, in New York, and be truly present? Well, I feel quite present because working helps. Any kind of having to step up to the plate and hit the ball helps. And I think human beings need to work. So even if you feel like you're too tired to work, if you feel like you just can't work, odds are that you can. And just showing up, as the filmmaker, I just blanked on his name, which would be because of the lack of sleep. Woody Allen famously said, and I hope I'm not misquoting him, 85% is just showing up. So anytime we show up with as much of ourselves as we have available to other people, it's a good thing. So I've had a very busy day teaching, and only one question has come in this week. And that question is a specification follow-up on the previous 2 lives that I've done. First in the Instagram Live and then in the last Facebook Live. And under the title, Dealing with an Emotionally Reactive Coworker. So we addressed it, 3 weeks ago on Instagram. The second half was on Facebook last week. And here's the question that the querent asked for me to, elaborate on and specify a little more for the querent. And it was written, can you please talk a little bit more about the word you used, detach, and how is that different from repress? So she said, detach versus repress/ignore. Brilliant question. And I will try to do that, although how to detach and how to make sure one is not repressing and is merely positively, mentally, healthfully suppressing something and dealing with it later is very individual. And I would say to my querent, if after having listened to my advice and after a month of applying the things that I told you in the last 2 lives and today, then I would suggest that you do consult with a licensed psychologist who will be able to be dealing with you, and just you, and your specific situations in a way that you wouldn't want to be doing during a public forum. So before I get to answering the question, I want to reassure all of you that as I'm getting better and better at answering these things off the cuff, as well as getting better at preparing a question you might have asked, the more specific you can be about your own feelings and in the questioning to me and about what the situation is, the more clear I'm going to be able to be in the giving you the tools to be dealing with the emotion that you are bringing up to us in these lives to talk about. But you might, like the original querent about the workplace, dealing with an emotionally reactive coworker, if somebody found out that she was doing this and it was that particular individual, there's the possibility, which is a reasonable fear, that one could be pilloried, put in the stocks and have people throwing stuff at you for merely asking a question, especially people who are volatile emotionally. If you ask a question about them and about their emotional reactivity, the individual might say, "I'm not emotionally reactive." Whoa, okay. You're not emotionally reactive. Got it. Yeah. So at any rate, we wouldn't want the querent to be embarrassed in any way or to be professionally compromised in any way. So if you want to ask a question and have it be brought up, go ahead, and it needs to be private, sort of for my eyes only or my assistant's eyes. It will be totally anonymous if you write to albatechnique@gmail.com. and ask your question. The words I will use will be the questioner, the querent. So even gender will not be referred to in regards to you. And so I just want to reassure you of that. So today we're going to deal with that problem. And detachment. I first started to think myself about detachment many years before I came to Susanna Bloch and her Alba emoting. Many years. And it was because of my very wise mother, who was from a long line of very strong women pioneers, literal pioneers. From Switzerland to Holland, and from Holland to southeastern PA, and from southeastern PA to Ohio, and from Ohio to North Dakota, and so true, 3 generations of pioneering women. And she was also a psychiatric nurse, married to a doctor of internal medicine, and whose best friends were a very fine psychiatrist who was helping pull them along in their thinking about the human mind and mental health. So I grew up with that. And at one point, I think I was in my early 20s, but I'm not positive, I was visiting at home, and I was thinking and internalizing too much something that somebody else had done. You know how we get into these mental loops, and you think about it, and I should have said, and I could have said, or maybe I shouldn't have, because she reacted blah, 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 or he said blah, 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 and then I blah, blah, blah. And, so it can get into us and be affecting our own abilities to function, and not in a good way. And then we start looping. We start going back to it, and back to it, and back to it. Now that is beginning to be neurotic. So if I had continued that kind of emotional, intellectual approach, I would have become gradually, very gradually, more and more, neurotic. I would have become more neurotic. So what my mother, wise woman, said was, as she was walking through the dining room with a pile of laundry, because I'm the eldest of 6, and the other younger children were still very young at the time. So she said to me, "Oh, for heaven's sakes, Pat, cultivate a little apathy." And I thought, apathy? I think being apathetic about anything is not a good thing, Mother. And she puts down the laundry and she looks upon me and she said, "My darling girl, if you don't learn to detach a little bit emotionally and become just a little bit apathetic about other people's emotions and the great things they're feeling, you're never going to live to a ripe old age. Cultivate a little apathy." Think about it. Picks up her laundry, off she goes. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? So, of course, I looked up apathy and I thought, I do not want to be an apathetic person. I am a person who cares about other people. Apathy is not in it when somebody else is suffering, whether it's with sadness, with anger, with anxiety, whatever it is. But as I got a little further, so I shelved it and just thought, okay, you'll begin to get ideas. And I think everybody, it's emotionally healthy to do that kind of thinking. You don't have to have all the answers right away. You're not going to have all the answers right away. A little patience with the self, please. A little patience with the self, which is so difficult during this pandemic time. It feels like we've been patient for almost a year. And we have, varying. So I began, when I was doing some spiritual reading, I saw that there is such a thing as emotional detachment from spiritual detachment. And what detachment means is quite literally, we are not emotionally attaching and clinging in to whatever is in front of us emotionally. But my questioner wants to know, okay, she thinks she understands what detach means, for where she's at right now. But how does she make sure she's not repressing / ignoring? Well, I think that first of all, I can give you a couple of observational tips. Ultimately, as soon as all of this is lifted, I would hope that you would be able to begin to work with me or another master teacher in person with the Alba emoting emotional effector patterns. Do not do this work online, men and women. Don't do it. Practice patience. Work with yourself in ways that are healthy. Doing Alba emoting emotional effector patterns, Susanna Bloch forbade any of the people that she certified as a master teacher in her Alba emoting system. She forbade us to teach the emotional effector patterns online for very, very good reason. Very, very. So it's not ethical. So please don't do it. But you can learn to observe your feelings. And as you get better and better at observing them, then if they're there, if you do the things that I told you to do for my querent in the first dealing with emotionally reactive coworker, in the second one that was on Facebook Live, and now this today, if you do these little things and it still persists after, I would say, a month, you're doing the best you can. I believe if things become acute before then, but give it about a month. The old 20, if one goes into rehab, it's 28 days minimum. So, use that as your rule of thumb. So if you're doing things, if you're changing little things, if you're adding extra positive things that I'm suggesting and have suggested in these talks, and you aren't, and it either A, keeps coming back up in the same way, or other things are coming up that are getting more and more difficult to deal with, or it just seems to be the same old, then I would suggest that it would be time to consult a really excellent licensed psychotherapist. Because, this kind of thing in a public forum is not enough because it can't be specific enough to you. You. And we want your emotional health and your emotional freedom and the wonderful physical benefits that come with that. So do not be fearful, please, to consult with a professionally licensed psychotherapist. And they're not all created equal. So you might find that you consult with one and it's not the right fit. So you may consult with another. And there are a lot of supports right now because of the pandemic for people who are doing consultative sessions for no money at all if you're having monetary difficulties, which so many of us are having. Monetary difficulties, which adds to the underlying anxiety. So please, do not be fearful. You can always join this. You can ask a question to me. It'll be kept anonymous if you email it, and as anonymous as possible if you put it in the comments for the next time. So next time we'll be Facebook Live, and then the week after that will be Instagram Live. So I am doing this weekly for you so that you'll have a forum simply to put out questions, to put out thoughts, and to be heard and to hear. And that is the good that this can do until we can get in person, which will, I'm in New York City, so the next time, if you want to plan ahead, would be the Memorial Day weekend, which I think in the United States, it's the last weekend in May. So circa the 25th and the 26th of May. You'd need to look it up. So back to detach versus repress, ignore. Now, repression has been long known, really for about a century now, that is not a good thing. And what repression is when the emotions come and we deny having them at all. We shove them down and we press them, we repress them, put them back and put them down. And in most cases of repression, the individual isn't even aware until there is a catalyst, an external catalyst, that the person has done so. So querent in dealing with that emotionally reactive coworker, that individual is probably dealing with a lot of repressed emotion that come up in the workplace, and those are some of the things that you're having difficulty dealing with. But you can't do anything about his repressed emotions. They're his, they're not yours. We've talked about that. But ignoring is a little different than repression. So she said repressed/ignore. Repression is the pushing down, and it can be you don't know it at all. But ignoring, querent, that implies that you kind of do know it's there, but you're going, no, I'm going to run away from it. Now, I don't think that's always a bad thing. I think that many of us who have these situations do have a tendency to procrastinate. Those of us who want to do good as you do, as you are a person like this. I've now had enough interaction with you to know that you are a person who desires very strongly to do good and to be supportive and assistive to other persons. And this is a very beautiful thing. And you, questioner, are also very sensitive. You're sensitive to the feelings of others, and you react with a desire to assist. And this is all very, very beautiful. So I put it to you that when you are faced with this coworker, all the things you're already doing, that now that we're dealing with it, you don't need to worry about repressing. I don't think you're going to repress it anymore, questioner. I really don't. Ignoring, sometimes it has to be, as I call it, shelved. Remember I said that? You feel the emotion, you observe what your internal physical reactivity. If you've gotten a little further with my previous suggestions, you might even be able to tell where in your body you react to these things. Make yourself a little note of those things. so that you can pat yourself on the back over time as it gets a little better and as your observational ability gets to be more and more accurate and specific. I'll just give an example off the top of my head. You're in a meeting, you're on Zoom, and you don't want to like telegraph to the other person that you're feeling reactive. So you've observed that when your difficult coworker is being difficult, your toes curl under, say, and you're like this with tense toes. Now that can't be seen online, but it does affect you emotionally because everything physical is an expression of emotion and something that's happening in us. But as adults, we're just so wonderfully complicated that we are not aware of these habitual manifestations in our own body. So as you're observing them, questioner, you will get more and more clear with yourself and proud of yourself. I want you to be so proud that you're not repressing this stuff anymore. When you're in the meeting, you might go, oh my gosh, he's just scared me to death by making that loud noise. And my toes have curled under. How interesting. I observe that. Thank you, body, for that information. I am going to take that, and rather than shoving it down to go back to the meeting, because this only, as you get better and better at it, it only takes a moment. You're going to take that, you're going to shelve it, you're going to put it up on this shelf, right here, and then you can take it out after the meeting is over, and you can go, whoa. Right, he made that noise and my toes curled under. That is so interesting. I'm going to make a note of that. And that is a very, very good thing to do. The recognizing is good. The shelving is good because you are suppressing it in the moment. And if we don't suppress some of our emotions and some of our reactivity to other people's neuroses, meetings and society would not continue. We would be putting each other down. We'd be becoming, as we have been, more and more uncivil all around the world. And that's kind of at best. At worst, we would be killing each other. And that happens too, or canceling somebody else because they're not of our particular tribe, which is also happening. Every tribe, everywhere. And it's because people are feeling that the individual emotion trumps absolutely everything. And I'm not referring to the former president. When I say Trump, I mean it's on top of everything and it explains everything and worse, justifies anything. So I must not justify my own reactive behavior to other people's neuroses so I don't become more neurotic. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to observe, and I want you to begin to observe more specifically physically. Then you do what I've told you to do. You mentally decide, I'm telling you to do now, you mentally decide to shelve it. In order for you to assist you as you're getting better and better at this, excuse yourself from the room for a moment, 5 minutes, so that you detach physically, unattach from the place you are geographically. You also will be changing your body position. Rise, move, go to the bathroom, get yourself some water, or in my case, some wonderful raw apple cider vinegar with raw honey in it. Excuse me. Five swallowed glugs. Glug, 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 glug. I was checking my lips to see, just have the lipstick, to see whether the upper lip and the lower lip went easily or whether I had subconsciously put tension in them. It's all wonderful. So, questioner, as I had told you, you give yourself permission in order to assist you to not repress and to not ignore but shelve, suppress just for the moment, but you're going to need physical assistance to do that. So do what I told you to do. Leave the room. You can come right back. If you tell people you have to go to the bathroom, they'll let you go to the bathroom. Don't give them a choice. Don't say, is it okay if? Be very direct. Allow yourself to be direct. And then go. And even if you didn't need to go to the bathroom, go off cameras. Rise, excuse me. And rise, and get off camera. Walk around, get back into your chair. You're quiet, you're looking at the other people in the gallery view. A little bit of a smile, a little bit of a nod of the head. Let's get some cerebral fluid up into the head. Yes. Yes. So these are all things. Observing the feelings, noticing if they persist. I cannot tell you again how much that I want you to get to a licensed psychotherapist if you notice, despite beginning to change your habits by the suggestions that I have made over these, and talking with a good friend or whomever you can, get ye to a licensed psychotherapist and find the right one. Let it be an experiment. Find the right one. Of course, it's best if you can be in the room with your psychotherapist. That I think is more supportive of all of the body systems. But right now, all too often, it's not possible. And if you're having financial difficulties, which most of us are having, then there are plenty of people who are willing to assist you on a consultative basis, that governments are assisting to help people, or who have enough money set by that out of the goodness of their hearts they're able to do some things for free. It's out there. You can access it. So please do. These wonderful psychotherapists, use them. That's why they're professionals at what they do. So again, notice what what being the opposite, what in your body reacts, because you want to begin to be able to have something that becomes more and more objective and less subjective, objective. That's helpful. And where, so what and where physically in your body is your reactivity to this difficult person in the meeting. And last point I would like to make is when you say ignore a questioner. Sometimes a strategic retreat, and not just the physical one that I was talking about before, but an internal, subjectively felt retreat away from thinking about and analyzing the reactivity, I've got something in my eye, the reactivity that you have had and that you've noticed. All I have to say about that is that in war, a strategic retreat is just that. The commander has looked out at the field. He is making intuitive guesses as to where the other general is going to move. General Wellington, Arthur Wellesley, in Waterloo, 1815, Napoleonic Wars. He's fighting one of the greatest generals who ever lived, Napoleon Bonaparte. And in the final battle, which Wellington did win, and it was a close-run thing, he strategically retreated. He retreated a couple of times. The news went to Brussels that, we've lost, everything is terrible, they're retreating, it's a rout. Well, it wasn't a rout, it was a strategic retreat. So he was so intellectually detached that he didn't let his emotions get into it. Now, we're talking about emotions, so we're not saying you're not going to have your emotions. You are going to have your emotions. And he wasn't repressing at all. He was using his focus and his concentration and, his natural genius that was God-given. But he didn't ignore the objective facts that were on the ground. So I don't want you, questioner, to ignore things. I really don't. I'm not suggesting that. But a strategic retreat from even thinking about it, when you've shelved it, you might be too tired after that day's work to take it down from the shelf and analyze it. You might need a good night's sleep, a bath, a half a glass of wine, a good meal. These were the 4 things that go as far back as St. Thomas Aquinas, who said when one is depressed, those things: a meal, a glass of wine, a bath. And of course, baths were not necessarily easy to come by. A hot bath in circa 1220 of the Common Era in Italy. Try to get a hot bath. People are carrying cans of hot water. And then a good night's sleep. So he was saying, I won't ignore the problem. I won't repress the problem. I will shelve it. And I will do these specific things so that I will be able to begin again for more of a level playing field. And so that finally is what I would suggest to my questioner in regard to dealing with emotionally reactive coworkers and how does one detach versus repress or ignore. Strategic retreat is not a bad thing. I would add reading a good book that's maybe has humor in it, it's really well written, something that will feed you, looking at some art, whether it's filmic art, sculpture, a good painting, whatever. I think Goethe said something, it's in the other room, that a person should try to read a good poem, see a good painting, and if possible, try to make a few sensible remarks once a day. And that was the great German Goethe. So I think, my goodness, we did that. So Querent, if there's anything more specific, you may give it to us. I would try to address it. And for the rest of you all, thank you so much for being with us. And perhaps you will see me again on Facebook Live next week at the same time, or on Instagram Live the week after. Thank you very, very much for being with us. Now, how do I turn this off?